Hello, hello, my friend Dee, and welcome to the Happiness Workshop podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so
always
glad to
happy to
have
spend
you.
time with Pat.
I love you. So let's get right to it. I'm so excited you're here. You know how much I love you. You're one of my favorite people in the world. And I love that we both just like tilted our heads at the same time. And yeah, so let's jump right in. I have your book in my hands right now. I'm so proud of you. Let's talk about Beauty in the Breakdown.
Thank you. So first of all, I can't start without saying I love you back. Let's talk about it. So Beauty in the Breakdown is my new best-selling book. Yay. I made Amazon bestseller. And I was inspired to write Beauty in the Breakdown because I realized that too often, and especially in my own journey, I started thinking about all of the breakdowns that I've had in life, right? And I think that too often we get stuck on what happened and we miss the lesson that the disruption has come to teach us because we say so focused on, I can't believe this happened. And when I look back over my own life, when I look at each disruption in my life, I realize that it served as a launch pad to elevate me to a new level of growth, a new level of opportunity, a new level of compassion, a new level of empathy. Whatever the disruption was meant to teach me, when I look back over my life, I see the launch pad. And I talk often about how I'm a 2-time breast cancer survivor, right? And I always say that I got cancer a second time because I didn't learn the lesson cancer came to teach me the first time. So that's where the whole thing was born.
Yeah, that's so much. There's so much packed into everything that you just said, right? So first of all, God bless you, 2-time breast cancer survivor. And my friend, you're not a survivor, you're a thriver.
I am thriving. Absolutely. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You are alive. I don't mean just physically. I mean spiritually, emotionally. You, my friend, are beautiful energy. You are alive.
Thank you. I received that.
Is that a picture of your beautiful mama back there?
That is my mommy. So,
Aww.
my mommy transitioned in 2019, and I can finally have conversations without bawling.
Yep. It's hard.
It was the hardest thing that I've ever been through. And I say that as a 2-time breast cancer survivor. It was even harder than breast cancer. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life.
Wow. Now you remind me so much of my mom who had ovarian cancer. I think I've told you before, she would have loved you. She would have had so much fun with you. But when she got cancer, she said, I can't think why me? I can't ask God why me? Because if I say that, that means why me and not someone else? And I wouldn't want someone else to be going through this. And that blew my mind that in that moment, she was still able to think of other people.
Absolutely. I think that is a great perspective. And I never even thought about it that way, that I can't say why me, because then I'm saying, why not someone else? I know for me, it wasn't the first time, it wasn't a why me or any of that. It was just, let's go through and do whatever the care team is telling me to do, and then I can get back to life, right? And so that's what I did. I did everything the doctors said to do, but I never stopped to ask myself, what is this here to teach me? Which is a lesson that I've learned from cancer. Right now, whenever I'm facing a challenge or a disruption, as I call them, I'm always now asking, what is this meant to teach me? Because I know that there's a growth opportunity for me. And so with my first round of cancer, I didn't make any changes myself, right? It was like I did the radiation, I did the chemotherapy, I did the surgeries, I did all of those things, but I did nothing about the things that were weighing heavy on me in my life, the stress, the unhappy marriage, the unhappy job. Like I didn't do anything about those things. And I'm always saying that I believe, and this is just what I believe, that cancer is a symptom of a larger problem, something that we're not dealing with in our lives.
That is so insightful. And I have to agree with that. And whether the thing that we're not dealing with is nutrition, is some sort of a health issue, or is it an emotional issue that becomes a health issue, right? Is it a stress level that our body just can't take anymore? So, from knowing you, I feel like so much of what I'm about to ask is I already know, or it's just implied or whatever, but you've alluded to the things that, you weren't dealing with. So you were married previously and you had a completely different career previously. So let's talk about that path that brought you to facing your cancer, learning your lessons.
Oh, it was painful. It was a painful, painful process. But I'm always saying that the season in between our what we want and getting from what we desire to what we want is usually a painful process. Very rarely is it rainbows, waterfalls, and butterflies, right? There's because growth in and of itself usually comes in what I call, I read a book one time called, I think it was Dream Bigger, a Dream Big or something. And she calls it the gap. The gap is where the pain happens, right? It's from your growth zone to your glory zone. And she calls the middle the gap. And the process of realizing that I always knew I wasn't happy in the marriage. I knew that from the beginning. I knew that when I got married, right? But I listened to the elders in my community when I expressed, like, I don't know that I'm ready to get married. I don't know that this is my husband. Something feels off. I was encouraged that he's a great guy. He's going to make a great husband. He's going to be great for your son. And all of those things were true, right? But nobody talked about how I needed to show up in the marriage. Nobody talked about who I needed to be. And so it was a very painful process of being unable to relate back to someone the same love that they were relaying to you. And it hurt. It hurt to not be able to reciprocate that no matter how hard I tried. And I am now a firm believer, and I tell everybody that God, source, the universe, the creator, whatever you call it in this intersectionality of faith, God won't bless where you don't belong, right? So no matter how hard I tried, I was never going to be able to love him the way he loved me, because it was like there was nothing wrong with the shoe, there was nothing wrong with the flip. It just wasn't a good fit.
Mm, that is such a great visual. And I feel like you are a unique story in that most people that I hear have been through divorce are, I just fell out of love with them. Um, or I gave more than I received, or I think it's beautiful how you can just full on admit it was so painful that I couldn't love him the way he loved me. And I feel like you don't hear that often. It's always the other person's fault, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's so much easier to blame the other person or to put it on them. And I mean, big props to you for owning your part, for being able to finally see it and understand, like, this is where the rub is. This is why I feel the way I feel.
No, absolutely. I love that. And something that you shared about how we always blame the other person, and very rarely do we see our fault. But I am always of the opinion that where there is two people, there's enough blame to go around, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
no matter what happened, two people are contributing to that relationship. Whether we're growing apart and we're both just sticking our head in the sand and pretending that we don't see it, we're both contributing. Whether one of us is getting out of reach and the other one is sitting here just waiting on the other one to come back, you're still contributing to that by the lack of action, right? Like we are all, there's enough blame to go around there. I will tell you another thing, Pascal. It took me a long time to forgive myself. It really did.
Mhm.
And partly because I realized through lots of counseling and therapy and my own coach that I was waiting on him to forgive me. And then that once he forgave me, then maybe I could forgive me. And I had to learn and grow that I could forgive me regardless of whether or not I got forgiveness outside of me. Right. And I forgave myself for the things that I didn't know, because ultimately that's what it boils down to, right? We don't know what we didn't know. And we don't know what we don't know. And what I didn't know in that moment was that the advice that I was getting from the elders in my community were coming from women who were broken themselves.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. And you don't know that because that's what you're used to.
Mhm.
That is what you see every day. And so that's your normal, right?
That was my normal.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was no long-standing marriage. There was no fidelity in marriages. There was pain. There was trauma. There was physical violence in all of the relationships, like literally all of them that I knew. And that was the norm. And the only benchmark I had of what a healthy marriage was going to look like was as long as he's not physical with me.
Mm.
Right? That's the only thing I had to gauge. Like nothing about communication, nothing about reciprocal love, nothing about the ebbs and flows of marriage or any of those things. Just as long as he's not violent towards me, I thought we could make anything work.
Yeah. Yeah. And happiness be damned, right?
Happiness be damned.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's so easy to have anger around those kinds of things and to say, why didn't someone tell me? Or why didn't it doesn't matter, because what I have learned to be true is that our generation, Generation X, is
The
the,
best generation out there, by the way. I'm just saying, I'm a little biased, but whatever.
yeah, baby, that's who we are. Um, you are so much fun. We really are the first generation as a whole to embrace therapy, to embrace that self-improvement of looking within and not being selfish. Some people think that looking within and taking time to improve yourself is selfish. And yes, it is selfish because you are giving yourself the attention. But I think it was Abraham Hicks who was like, if someone is mad at you, someone's upset with you and calling you selfish because you are turning inward and looking at yourself, what they're saying is they're mad because you're not giving them your attention.
Oh, I love that. I
Right?
love what you just shared about looking inward and it being selfish. I'm of the opinion, as a matter of fact, when I finally got the courage to ask for a divorce, I even said to him, it is selfish. I'm being selfish, but I have to take care of me. And remember the times when you had to be selfish and call off relationships that were no longer working for you. Because, see, I think that the thing that people tend to forget is that in this lifetime, we're going to be cast in either one role or the other. We're going to be breaking hearts or we're going to be getting our hearts broken. And I think that it's important to remember what it was like when you were breaking hearts. Like it wasn't out of malice. And that was what I shared with him. Like, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it to help you and to help me. Right. And the other thing that you shared about looking inward to fix it, like, where else are we going to look? Right. That's where it starts. And I heard this really wonderful analogy, and I would love to share it if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Um, he said, I was I lost my keys, and it was dark in the house. I couldn't find my keys. So I thought, okay, I'll go outside where the light is. So I'm outside and I'm looking for my keys. And my neighbor comes up and says, well, what are you looking for? I'm looking down on the ground. And my neighbor says, well, what are you looking for? And he says, well, I'm looking for my keys. So my neighbor, being neighborly, starts to help me look for the keys. And then he says, well, when was the last time you saw your keys? And I said, well, in the house. But I decided I'd come outside where the light is instead of looking where I lost it. And where you usually lose it is in self. So why would we be looking externally for somebody to fix us?
That is so on point, isn't it? Wow. Yeah, that is so true, because it does take that looking within and really getting to know yourself again and figuring out what you want. And in that moment, you're like, yes, I'm being selfish, but I don't think you were being selfish, because at the end of the day, like you said, it's better for him and it's better for you. And what are you doing to him, keeping him in that marriage where he's not receiving what he deserves to receive?
What he deserves, absolutely. And when I say selfish, I mean from the perspective of it's caring for self, which in and of itself is selfish. And again, it's necessary to care for self. Where they tell you when on the airplane, put your own mask on first, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've worn that analogy into the ground, but it really is true. And so I here we are now. Oh my God, I don't even know how many years now that we've been divorced, but he's happily married, I'm happily married, and we're friends, right? We are both in
Mhm.
marriages now that complement who we are as people.
That's beautiful. And they lived happily ever
And they
after.
live happily ever after, even though at the beginning, when that process takes off, it hurts like a mother. Okay. But that I think that that's one of the messages that I want anyone to receive that's listening to this podcast today. Is like, just don't give up in the middle of the process. Don't turn back out of fear of failure, out of fear of the what ifs. That really the only way to get to the glory zone is to go through the process and close the gap.
That is sage advice. I feel like we could just be done now, but I don't want to be.
Okay, me either.
But that is the beauty and the breakdown, right? Is going through it and coming out of the other side
Absolutely.
better and happier and more complete.
Absolutely. And no longer having anyone else serve someone else's time, right? Because now that I'm going through this process of healing and fixing myself in the broken pieces, and putting this puzzle piece together and making a whole puzzle now, and not just having pieces over here and pieces of me over there, and not really seeing the full and complete vision of myself. Now that I've healed myself, I can bring a healed person into my relationships, not just with my significant other, but a happy and whole person is going to be a better parent. A happy and whole person is going to be a better friend, a better daughter, a better coworker, a better business owner. Like, when you are happy, genuinely happy, it resonates and touches everything you're connected to.
I could not have said that better myself. So very true. And the people who love you, they want that for you,
Yes.
right? And I just want to revisit this idea of self and selfish for one more second, because one of the things that I always say when I'm working with my clients is yourself with a capital S. And that means who you are from within, yourself, right? Because who you are from within is the light of the world. So whether, like you said, that's God, the universe, whatever you call that, That's yourself with a capital S. And so when you're able to stop and look within, okay, that's selfish, but that's selfish with a capital S. So that is not selfish as in I am not doing for you because I don't care or I'm taking from you. That would be selfish with the lowercase s. That's
Icky.
the icky. Yes, icky. That is the perfect diagnostic word. But selfish with a capital S just means what you should be doing, and that's looking within.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that more of us need, not need or should, I hate both of those words. And
Yep.
I hate the word hate too.
Me too. Me too. I never used to allow my kids to say it. I'm like, no, you can say, I greatly dislike that, but you don't know hate in your life. And hate is a very ugly word.
Very ugly word. I used to tell my children that also. I used to tell them you can say you strongly dislike. I strongly dislike that. But I even forgot what I was going to say now, Pascal. Carry on.
You hate should, and you hate
Need,
need, and you hate hate.
and I hate hate. But there was a reason I was gonna say we should or need, but it's not should or need.
I love it. You're so much like me, and it'll come back to you. And when it does, you just bring it up. And
Yeah.
so, you know, when did you got your second cancer diagnosis? When were you able to look at that and say, there's something I'm not paying attention to here. There's lessons I'm not learning. Was that at the time of diagnosis, or was that later when you reflected back?
I think that it was in the middle of the first and second diagnosis. I think it was, I knew that there were things that I needed to pay attention to in my life. I knew that my diet was poor. I knew that I wasn't really physically moving my body unless I was trying to get ready for vacation or a birthday dress.
You don't know me.
I knew that I was unhappy in the marriage, and I knew that the job was causing me a lot of stress as well. And I knew that I wasn't living as my authentic self. So I knew all of these things. I was just too afraid to make a change. I was worried about what it was going to do to my now former husband. I was worried about what my choices would do to my kids. I was worried about what it would look like if I left that job because it was paying very well. Um, I was too, well, I can say it now because I talk to myself better now. But back then I was just being lazy. I was too lazy to be consistent, to make consistent health choices, right? And because that took effort, and I was sticking my head in the sand for all of it. I didn't want to deal with any of it. So if it had not been for that second cancer diagnosis, I honestly don't know how much longer I would have stuck my head in the sand. But it wasn't long after that diagnosis that I blew up my life, right? I finally got the courage to ask for the divorce. I finally got the courage to leave the job. I took a pay cut, but it was worth it for the lack of stress. I finally got the courage to start a business. I finally got the courage to acknowledge my sexuality and acknowledge that I am lesbian or at least bisexual because Usher is looking so good lately. So all of these things that I was so afraid of, when I blew up my life, what I learned is that all of the pieces fell together perfectly. But it was, my mom used to always say, may she rest in peace. My mom used to always say, warning comes before destruction. And I really believe that my first cancer diagnosis was my warning, right? My second cancer diagnosis was my destruction. It's like it's time to reconstruct some things around here, be like, and I'm gonna keep coming back until you get this lesson. And so
Yeah.
I'm happy to report now that I'm 16 years in remission.
Woo-wee. That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so one of the things that I tell my clients that I work with is the only way, there's no going around fear. The only way to deal with it is to go through it. And yes, it's gonna look like a mess in the beginning. It's kind of like, oh, if you've ever had to purge and reconstruct your closet, right? You know, when you're pulling everything out, there's just crap everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And you're thinking, what in the world? How am I ever going to put all this stuff back
What did I
together?
do?
What did I do? Then it starts, you know, as the dust starts to settle, you start going, okay, what can I do without? And you start picking things out that you can purge, that you no longer need, right? And then you take the things that you know are still useful to you, and you hang them up in the closet, and you hang them up in order. You make sure you put your colors with your colors, you put your slacks with your slacks, your dresses with your dresses. And when you're done, you have a whole new closet, and you're thinking, huh, now I can go directly to what I need. That's what it feels like to rebuild yourself. Now I can go directly to the resources that I need. When I'm struggling with anxiety, I can now stop and ask myself, what's causing the angst instead of blowing up? When I'm struggling with depression, I can say to myself gently, maybe we just need rest, right? Whereas before it was responding with tears and crying and anger, right? But now that I've rebuilt this closet and I can get to my tools and my resource easily, when I come against life's disruptions, I now know that it's just a growth opportunity to me for me. And I'm no longer looking around in the closet like, where am I going to find my tools?
This was a mic drop. Mic drop.
So sweet.
There have been several times to this conversation, like I said, where I'm like, okay, we can stop here. Because I mean, what I'm such a visual person that the whole idea of that closet also, I will add that we're getting ready to get new carpets upstairs. And I texted the kids the other day and I said, just so you know, on this date and this date, we're doing an upstairs purge. My daughter texted back from college and says, what does that mean? And do I have to participate? And I'm like, yes, you do, because we're going to take everything but the furniture out. We're going to sort through every bit of it, and we're only bringing back what we want.
Absolutely.
Because what that just, oh, you can exhale. And
You
like
can,
you said, when you clean out the clutter, you can find your tools.
absolutely. That part.
Yes. So powerful, Dee. So powerful. Your clients, while I wouldn't call them lucky because they, have had to go through breast cancer, you're a breast cancer strategist, right?
Yes. Yes. Let's
And so,
strategize this thing. Let's not just throw it to the wind and throw it to the wall and see what sticks. Let's be intentional.
yes. And that's what you had to teach yourself to do. And I love that you went to therapy. You had a coach of your own. You've done all the things, you've learned all the tools. So you're saving these women so much time, so much heartache. And for the heartache that's left that they have to walk through, you're there with them and you're walking beside them to help them through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I became what I wished I had, but I didn't know existed. Right. Because again, we don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
When I went through my treatment, I was so afraid to be vulnerable, Pascal. So I really didn't allow people to support me. My former husband, friends, family, I went to a lot of treatment appointments alone because I wanted to present this image that I'm strong and I can handle anything. And you guys don't need to worry. When what I know now is that it takes courage and power to be vulnerable and say, hey, I need help. Hey, I really don't want to do this alone. Hey, I could just use you there to take notes from the doctor. Hey, I could just use you there for emotional support. I went through this whole thing virtually by myself because I was too afraid to be vulnerable, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do that now.
No, your next book is going to be Beauty and Vulnerability.
Oh, yes, yes. Now, Beauty in the Breakdown, we have a chapter in there on vulnerability. But you're right, it can be a whole book all by itself, because it was really something that I had a lot of things that I had to unlearn, right? That power was loud, power was aggressive, power looks a certain way, and that I couldn't allow people to get me. I couldn't allow people to win. And I found a lot of freedom in taking myself out of that race, right? Taking myself out of that fight. And it was like you said, I was able to and exhale when I realized that I didn't have to show up to arguments just because I'm invited.
Yep. Yep. It's so true. And that light that lives inside of you, it doesn't want to be alone. It wants support. It wants community. Your
Absolutely.
light shines brighter when someone else is shining right next to you.
Absolutely. And I love that analogy, because together we can light up a whole room.
Together we can light up the world, Dee.
Yes. Yes.
Just your smile will do that, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So tell me, where can people find your book?
Beauty in the Breakdown. You can find it on my website at beautyinthebreakdownbook.com, or you can find it on Amazon also. So there are two places you can get it.
Amazon bestseller. Woo-hoo.
Amazon bestseller. And you know what? What's so great about that, Pascal, is usually for people to reach Amazon bestseller, you have to strictly be selling off of the Amazon's platform. And I wasn't even focused on Amazon's platform. I was focused on my own, and yet we still hit Amazon bestseller. So it was, I say it was nothing but the creator. So I'm thankful to the universe, and I'm just continuing to not try. It is my goal to continue to be it to receive it, because I believe that the energy we give is the energy we will receive. So I'm thankful to the universe for the energetic exchange.
Beautiful. So beautiful. And is there anything that you wanted to offer listeners? Say someone is like, man, I just came through breast cancer. Where do I go from here?
Oh, that is a great question. So if you are just now on the other side of treatment or about to finish treatment, or you are an optimist and you already that's the word,
Optimist.
right? Optimist, and you already know that you're gonna beat this thing, right? And that's one of the things that I used to always say, this is just a bump in the road, and I've just got to slow down, get over the speed bump, and then I can get back to life, right? The only thing is, let's get back to life that's better than ever, right? Let's no longer just settle. No, let's no longer go for good enough. Let's go for making the rest of our life the best of our life. So if that's you, you can join my free Facebook group, which is my private Facebook group, which is Thriving on Purpose. You can also go to my website, dmanuelcloud.com, and that's Manuel is spelled with an E. I know a lot of times people want to spell it with an A, so it's Manuel. So it's dmanuelcloud.com, and there you can book a complimentary breakthrough session with me. You can also find resources on the website for free downloads, just for some instant support. So those are the ways that you can connect with me. You can also follow me on Instagram at I am Manuel Cloud. You can follow me on Facebook at I am Manuel Cloud. And you can follow me on LinkedIn, I am Manuel Cloud. And then last but not least, TikTok, I am Manuel Cloud.
You sure are, my friend, Manuel Cloud.
They won't forget the name, if nothing else.
By the end of this, they're all going, all right, fine. I know someone, I'll send them your way.
That's the goal. That's the goal. I would be delighted to support anybody's family member that's listening to this podcast. Nobody should have to walk through cancer alone. And that's the reason that I became a breast cancer recovery strategist, is that I realized that when we're going through treatment, a lot of times we have so much support surrounding us, right? However, when treatment ends, most of our loved ones go back to their life as normal. And rightfully so, because a lot of times they put things on hold to care for us. Except for the lady that just finished treatment, life is rarely ever normal again. And we are kind of standing around looking like, what just happened and what do I do now? And that's where I come in. I want to come in and show you how to harmonize your diet and exercise and your emotional well-being without feeling like you're deprived and giving up your quality of life.
Mm. You are such an ever-flowing resource, and I think anyone who works with you is going to be blessed for sure.
Thank you. Mwah. Thank you.
Mwah. So as we go today, do you have any last minute thoughts, any last minute takeaways that you want to leave?
Oh, I heard a quote, and it's a very short quote, but I think that it is so fitting as we close out for not only your clients, but my clients alike. And that is, nothing changes when nothing changes.
Mm, that is so true. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a light in the world when people need light the very most. And you know how much love I'm sending you out with today.
And I'm receiving it and I'm sending you back double. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Pascal. Anytime I get to spend with you is always amazing. So thank you. I really appreciate you.